Okay, well, that panel before us was a tough one to follow. I started as a woman, as the first editor of PC Magazine, in the way back when magazines were out, and now we've gone to an era where women are kind of running the show about NFTs, Web 3.0. Really, I feel like I hope they stood on shoulders, hope they continue to. But right now, we're going to switch the conversation, and to me, we're going to go back to something I'm super comfortable about talking about, which is something tangible. And I want you to meet Jason Kintzler and not forget him because he's got an amazing story, which we'll get to in a minute. But Jason, tell them how you got here. Let's start with the simple.
How I got here this time?
This time.
Like actually driving?
Like actually driving from...
So I'm probably the only startup you know in the state of Wyoming, the state that is on the forefront for blockchain and crypto legislation and DAOs and the whole thing. So we actually are relevant if you haven't heard of us.
You are relevant. And I think the play is that wallets are digital, yes, but payments are going to be physical and digital forever. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your sort of Gen 1 Lifekey and where you're at?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, a colleague of mine, he would commute to work on his road bike, cycling, and I always wondered, like, what happens if something happens to you? Like, what if you crash? What if something happens? It's like, well, I have this engraved bracelet. I'm like, really? That's where we're at. 100 years later, we're still engraving in stone or metal or whatever. And so I just started to think about that. And, with my background is software, I had a PR software company for 12 years called Pitch Engine. And so in that process, just thinking about software and ways to solve problems. And I knew that active lifestyles, people that were, whether it be cycling or skiing or running or whatever it is, we don't need more electronics. That's like the last thing we need. Something to charge, something to worry about, something that needs a connection. And that was really sort of the premise behind Lifekey. And the idea was, what if I could have this device? Maybe it's as simple as a zipper puller or a wristband, or maybe it's integrated into my garments that I wear, and I could tap on it with a smartphone just like I tap to pay. So just like Apple Pay, I tap on the point of sale system and my phone does a thing. Our credit cards, we can tap them on the point of sale and they do a thing. So what if I could use that, this magic device? What if it had one more superpower, and it was I could tap on things and access information?
So bring it circle. So if you tapped on your friend's Lifekey, it would have told you what?
Any kind of information. So the idea behind my first thought is safety information. So is there important medical information I need to know? Who are your emergency contacts? If it's my child, please tap on this and let me know that something happened at a soccer game or at a friend's house or whatever. And so that was kind of the premise, is how can this thing maybe save a life or at least give me peace of mind that that information is available if I can't communicate.
And let's go under the hood. So what's the magic drive? So it's invisible. There's no user interface.
Sure.
I don't have to tap things. What's going on in there?
Well, what makes it different is it's a microchip. So it's RFID technology, but it's a subset of that called NFC, which is near field communication. And when we go to tap on something with our phone like this, like the credit card, for example, we have, and we put it in that machine, it uses radio frequency to read it. So when you tap your phone on the device, it's using the power from your phone to power this chip to bring back information.
Is that your band right there?
This is it, yeah.
Okay, we got to get a close-up of that. So they're really, it's washable, kind of indestructible.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems, is that still working? Okay. One of the problems is, this type of technology was built into credit cards. Well, that's one use. You put it in a wallet. You probably don't run it through the laundry. If you do, it's maybe okay. But when you start to think about how do we put that into garments? How do we make it washable? How do we make it waterproof and heat proof and, bicycle trip proof and ski proof and all that? Then it gets challenging. So that's the hardware problem we had to solve. And then with software, we had to build an operating system so that when any phone would tap this thing, something would happen, and it would be contextual based on whether you're tapping it, I'm tapping it, where we're tapping it, what we're tapping it with. All those things.
And what you're tapping. So you can tap people, but you can tap luggage.
Yeah.
You can have a pet Lifekey, right?
We do a pet life key called Fetch, and it's a dog tag, silicone dog tag, and you look at it, there's instructions. You tap it with your phone. The owner gets notified of the GPS location of your pet, and you get all their information, including whatever you want to put, vaccination records, whatever. We're now in 90% of the pet retailers, from Target, PetSmart, Chewy, Rover, all these retailers.
So you saw this opportunity with a technology. It's been around.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't invent NFC.
No.
But you thought of sort of a unique, unusual usage case, not just tapping your credit card,
Yeah.
which people are used to, but so it could be in your jacket, right? It could be, and I think people are making NFC aware jackets now.
Yeah, so what we did is one of the first integrations we did, we had a lot of soft goods manufacturers. So when you start out with safety, things like the ski industry and soft goods and, large brands in that industry, or active lifestyle like motocross and mountain biking and all those, they come to us and say, we want to integrate this technology. What can you do for us? And through that, one of the brands introduced us to YKK. We started to talk with them. We built the world's first smart zipper.
That was right.
Yeah, and
YKK,
so-
the zipper company.
So our operating system is on a zipper that brands will put into their jackets. And imagine now what the use cases are
Yeah.
beyond just safety.
And I think the cool thing about NFC is it doesn't have to be the thing you buy. It can get smarter as the life cycle of the thing goes on. So let's say I buy a dress or a zipper with NFC. I take it home and they say, oh, you bought that blue dress. You're probably going to love the blue shoes that we're going to give you the discount. Or take this to the dry.
Oh, it's so much, Robin. For example, it starts in the very beginning. So when you actually make the garment, you're giving it a digital birth certificate. So you're saying, This is where it was made. This is when it was made. These are the ingredients it was made with. This is when it was received at this location versus that location. Then it gets to the store, and instead of having hang tags and booklets and things hanging off the garment, a bunch of waste, a bunch of garbage, what if I could just tap on the garment, learn everything I need to know from all that stuff to features and all that stuff about the product, and then care instructions. How do I wash it?
Yeah.
Things we used to put on tags and print them. And then once I activate it, now it's registered to me. It's my garment. And then what do I do at the end of the life cycle? And how does this brand communicate with me during the life cycle? So, it's like a Pandora's box.
And clearly the advertisers love it also because they can, for the first time, I think, using NFC, track loyalty after it leaves the store. And that makes...
Oh, it's amazing. For one of the companies we're working with right now in the ski industry, super high-tech brand, now all of a sudden they can find out what the temperature is when people wear their garment.
Right.
It's fascinating data that we just never had before. And usually the relationship with the customer ended when they walked out of the store.
Yeah.
They bought your product, they walked out, that was it. But now it can be ongoing. I can tap on my couch, my outdoor couch, and get a cool mixology recipe or a Spotify playlist for the week.
So this is so incredible. So this guy was a PR guy in software, and I kind of remember your company then. Sees a problem, looks for a solution that's totally different. So what was the obstacle when you had to go to people and say, I want you to buy my Lifekey?
That's still an obstacle every day, but it's getting easier. In the beginning, it was all about safety, so it was like, well, I have this device, but I hope I never have to use it. And I'm like, that's not really what I was going for. So we started to build more use cases of how do I tap this to check in and let my family know where I'm at? How do I make it a useful thing for me as the wearer? And that's what led us to today, where we're preparing to launch Tap to Pay and the payment functionality.
Right.
And to put that in perspective, the things you can pay with are, an Apple Watch, Google, Samsung, and Garmin. And those are all electronics. They're all watches. They're all kind of the same in the way that works. But what if that all went away and it was untethered and I didn't need batteries and I could just tap and pay? And so that makes that use case even better.
Right. So this next product is Lifekey Pay. What's
it's
the name?
Part of Lifekey. Yeah, it'll be Lifekey Pay
part
functionality.
Of Lifekey.
Yep.
No batteries, no user interface. I go out for a run in the morning, right? And then I want my coffee afterwards.
Totally. Yeah.
So I just...
Yeah, you'll just tap it just like you would a physical card. But you'll just tap either it's your cuff in your garment, it might be a wristband, it might be whatever. We don't even know.
Right.
Your dog might call its own Uber and get home. I don't know yet.
And the way you load it up with
Just with an app.
so
Yep.
you attach it to your debit or credit card or something, and
Yeah,
load it
it'll
up.
be it'll sort of be like its own little account. So you'll actually load money onto it, like a prepaid. I'll give my son a band and put
Well, that's an
$100
added
on it.
advantage.
Yes,
You can-
because they don't keep their devices charged. They'll probably lose a credit card, but if I can actually like put it on their garment, then maybe I'm winning.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing a backpack thing.
Yes.
So can you think out to the future? You've heard a lot. If you've been here, you've heard about NFTs. You've heard about Web 3.0. What happens when NFC meets these emerging technologies?
That's a great question, and I want to run to that space. Like I want to run to developing more blockchain functionality and developing with NFTs and crypto. The trick is to stay focused so we can make a consumer product that consumers understand. And I was just visiting with Karim on the podcast earlier, and we were talking about, all this is great. Like talking to this group and everybody at South by is awesome because they're all early adopters and we're all speaking the same speak. But the thing doesn't really get real and interesting until my dad understands it, until my wife's using it.
I am your dad. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
Like until that happens, meh. It's cool and it's fun and it's exciting, but until we're using it, and I don't even know if it'll manifest itself as the labels we're using now. Like I don't know that blockchain will be a thing that anybody ever sees. In fact, when we talk about our products, we never even say NFC. We just say this is how Lifekey works. You tap on it with your phone. We don't need to know these underlying technologies. We need consumers to sort of view it in their own way. They need to solve a problem. And so where does NFC fit with that? It's an interface. And I think that when you start to think about identity, everything has identity. My mountain bike, my snowboard, my dog, my cat.
Oh, yeah, your
My
NFTs
house.
as well. It's whatever you
So
code.
how do I
Yeah.
interface with that?
Yeah.
That well, the phone would be a great way to do that, and you can't do it with QR codes because they're not secure. You can hack a QR code. You can copy a QR code. They're not individual. You print a bunch of QR codes that take me to a website.
So do you have to go out to every POS system to make your Lifekey acceptable?
You would if you weren't partnered with Visa or MasterCard.
Well,
So we are, and that's one of the that's the way to make that work, and that's a huge lift and really hard thing to do, but that's what's going to make it different.
that's so amazing. So, is everybody familiar with NFC and sort of how it works? And do you need do you need a phone signal? You don't need a phone signal. It's really like one of the most underused, and maybe because it came out too early before there were use cases.
Probably. I mean, it was a big risk for us to go that direction, but I'm a guy that I still like Twitter because it's 140 characters. I love the forced conciseness and brevity, and I like to try to get. I think simple design is hard. It's easy to say, well, why don't you make it track? Okay, well, that means we need a battery. Okay, once you have a battery, well, now it can do everything. So let's put everything in it. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of companies make, is just trying to do everything. So how do we stay within these bounds, stay within the functionality of NFC, and how do we solve problems that way? And it's far, I think it's really hard, but a lot of creativity comes out of that box. When you're a startup and you don't have resources, you're more creative.
But you still had to deal with, I don't know where you get your chips. You had to deal with the supply chain issues. What was the pandemic like for you? Trying to build product and keep it out there.
The pandemic was it was an interesting time because on one hand I could sit in a room and do my thing, double down, right? And I could pass everybody that paused. Right? I could just go, and they all paused, and they stopped, and they slowed down. And that was okay because I felt like I got 5 years out of that. However, some of the functionality, I'm like, man, I could really solve a problem with this because, I don't know if you remember, in the beginning of COVID, the idea was if you had the antibody, you could be immune. This is before they had a lot of research about it. So I thought, man, if we could show that you have the antibody on the band, you could get into a factory. You could get into an airport.
Restaurant.
Maybe we could be this thing. What I didn't realize is that PR got out in my little town of Jackson Hole, and the story came out that we had this band that could show your immunity, and it was highly controversial, and I got it from all sides, and I thought I didn't know I was going to survive it.
So a PR guy gets his own PR nightmare.
Horrible. PR crisis, right? I had to completely turn off everything in terms of any way to reach us and social and all that. They were connecting me to Bill Gates in two tweets and Hitler and all these things. And really my intention was, can I just solve this problem?
Yeah.
Can I just help people get back to what they're doing? And so I learned a big lesson during COVID. But at the same time, adoption for tap to pay and contactless technology soared.
Right. But you still had to solve a ton of security problems. Right. To accept
Totally.
a payment, you got to be secure.
Oh, there's PCI compliance. Before that, it was HIPAA compliance that we had to do. So health and safety information, we had to be HIPAA compliant and track who's accessing what when and all that. Then we got into PCI, which is a whole other world. And so we've been through the ringer in terms of that.
So, yeah, but these standards, I mean, they are what lets you do what you do. So imagine if we were here at South by, and instead of showing your app, your ClearPass, you just had a bracelet that you wore to everything.
Yeah,
Pretty efficient.
Or Clear just plugs into our platform. Uses the operating system.
You're not ready to announce that yet.
I think that's going to come. We have to. It's always chicken and egg.
Yep.
And we have to build our brand to become a thing in people's lives before other brands will realize it. It's always that third-party endorsement. I can tell my son over there to do something 10 times, but until his buddy or a coach tells him, he's not going to listen.
Is that true? You always listen to him, right? All right, so this is my favorite part. So now we're going to play Guess What This Costs, right? Because he could tell you, but we could. So what would you pay, right, for an NFC base? I shouldn't say NFC base, for Lifekey. Anybody, let's just do $5 to $10, $10 to $20, $20 to $50. I'm getting no guesses. That is a guess. There,
Nice.
250.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this technology is we want to be able to integrate it. It's a simple microchip. There's no screens. There's no batteries. We sell our wearables for $25. We sell dog tags for $25. We want to make this a ubiquitous thing that other companies can bake into their products as well. Integrations are just as important as our own devices.
$25. It's pretty good, right? I mean, like, and if you think about it, for your loved ones, for your family, I'll share a funny story. My son is a glamper and put me in Wimberley in a tent for all of South by, and I'm kind of freaking. It's really cold. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I just need a Lifekey. And last night when he called me, I said, "You're the only person that knows how much trouble I'm having navigating from Austin to Wimberley, down a dirt road, to my tent. So I need a Lifekey for sure." And everybody there does. So yes, never mind, the water was frozen this morning. We could go on and on. But you drove across the country. How was your drive with him? It did take a while. What'd you do to pass the time, you guys?
He's a gamer, so he didn't care. He was on his phone. We had to contend with snowstorms and all that stuff, so that's always fun. But we wanted to make a road trip out of it. We just in case the apocalypse happened, we were protected by Lifekey in the truck, so we were good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I urge you, just look up Jason's whole history online. Look up Lifekey. If you love anybody and want to keep track on them, never mind your luggage, your pet, your other valuables. It's just a fabulous solution to a problem. Are there questions from anybody? Anybody have a question for Jason? He's sort of even about Wyoming. Which actually is a huge crypto state and has one of the first banks, I guess.
First
Avanti.
two crypto banks. You've got Kraken is opening a bank, and also
Avanti
with Caitlin Long. Yeah, that's true.
So if keep reading about Wyoming. They are setting the pace in so many ways, and you're a native.
I am born and raised. I'm like 6th generation.
But nobody else was like in engineering.
In my family, no. Cowboys, yes. I took the cowboy part.
Yeah. No. Any other questions? Any other thoughts, comments? I know we had somebody here before who wanted to comment. She's gone. Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jordan again, but let's hear it for Jason and I don't know your son's name after all.
Cooper.
Cooper. So nice to be, good to be here, supporting Dad.